And a very happy Tuesday to you at 12:06 in the West. It's the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang has the week off. He'll be back with us on Monday. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Don't know if you had a chance to turn the television on earlier today, but today was the day that the president issued the pardon to the turkey. It's something that happens every year. It's part of the Thanksgiving holiday tradition, and it was quite a ceremony where the first thing that President Trump did was declared last year's pardon to be null and void because it was done by Joe Biden's auto pen. So if you're that turkey and you're still around, definitely stay away from the guy with the knife because the end may be near. And then they trot the turkey out right there at the White House so the president can pose for pictures with the turkey after the pardon is issued. I have never seen a turkey that fat in my entire life. I don't know what the hell they feed these things. Maybe this turkey just got off on one of those around the world cruises. They spend a lot of time at the buffet. They spend a lot of time in the dining room. Maybe they hit the room service from time to time. The ultimate dining package, hit all the specialty restaurants. But boy, was that turkey fat. If that turkey didn't get that pardon, I think it could stock every single Jersey Mike's this side of the Mississippi. The turkey was that fat. But the turkey is not going to end up on anyone's Thanksgiving table because that turkey was issued a pardon by the president. So we're all grateful for that. So happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Stay away from Costco. If you go to Costco today, make sure you go. Well, today this is over. I guess it would be tomorrow. You have to pay the extra fee so you can get there an hour early. If you go between 9 and 10, it's still normal. If you go after 10 o'clock, it's going to look like a FEMA camp. Everyone is going to be there with one of those flatbeds, and they're going to take everything that's not nailed down. Remember during COVID when we all fought over the toilet paper? Well, if you go to Costco today or tomorrow, there will be fistfights over 75% of their merchandise. Everything is going to be the tickle me Elmo. So just stay away. If you've already done your shopping, count yourself lucky. If you haven't done your shopping, find a restaurant, find someone's house to go to. It's not worth putting yourself through that dehumanizing treatment to go shopping today or tomorrow, or God forbid you go on Thursday. I would imagine there are people who do their shopping on Thursday. You always see at Christmas time people doing their Christmas shopping on Christmas Eve because you know what they say. You always find the perfect gift at that very last car wash you shop at. People waiting until the last minute to do that. Happens every year. What can you say? Also on the television news today, a lot of transgendered stories. You notice that? It seems like it's all Thanksgiving talk, all the cost of living talk, and then every third story is a transgendered story. Including today, there was some kind of competition, and I don't even know where it was, because I know it's not the Olympics, because that doesn't happen until, I guess it's 2028, and we're going to host it. And it's not the Winter Olympics. That's not going on right now. Maybe it's the World Games. I don't know. But they had a competition for the world's strongest woman. Did you see that? And of course, a biological male won. And the woman who came in second place didn't seem to be happy about it because she cursed and then walked off the podium during the ceremony. So if she was trying to keep a poker face, it didn't really work out. But she didn't rain on the parade of the person who won. because that person seemed to be very ecstatic about winning that competition. And let me tell you, I don't know what is required to win this competition. I don't know if it's lifting weights, or maybe you have to be like Jack LaLanne and get in the pond and pull the boat with your teeth. I don't know. The person who won this competition didn't even look like a human. They looked like a tank. They looked like some kind of military vehicle that weighs about 5,000 pounds. And that's who won the competition. As soon as I saw the image of that person on my television screen, I thought to myself, you know, if you want to rob the ATM at a 7-Eleven in Oakland or Vallejo, you don't even need to steal a Kia anymore and drive it through the wall. You just need to take a Twinkie and put it through the mail slot and tell this winner, all right, go get it. I don't even think they'd take out the wall. I think they'd take out the entire structure. Just run right through it. And then you can take the ATM out of the rubble, and then you can tie it to the back of the stolen Kia and get out scot-free. The other one that's big news happened in Los Angeles. It happened at a Gold's Gym on La Cienega Boulevard. I'm sure many of you have seen this story. It's gone nationwide, where a transgendered athlete was in the women's restroom exposing theirself with male genitalia. And the women didn't like that, with one in particular complaining to management and on social media. And that story sparked my interest. It sparked my interest for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, I can only imagine what it must have been like for the women inside that locker room. Because while there are people who are enthusiastic about exercise, and they are very passionate about staying in shape and lifting weights and running on the treadmill, and I don't even know what they call that machine where you have to put your legs up in those abortion stirrups and then just squeeze them. But you know all the machines they have at the gym. It's a huge pain. Very few people actually want to be there. How do we end up going to the gym as adults? If you're a child, you go because you want to make the basketball team, you want to make the hockey team, you want to do whatever it is you want to do with athletics. And that requires being in shape. And if you want to be in shape, you have to exercise. There's no way around it. But for adults, very few of us are going to be competing in this female powerlifting competition. So you don't have the same motivation to go to the gym. So why do we end up at the gym? Either you're changing one morning, you look in the mirror, you see a fat roll someplace it shouldn't be, and you're disgusted with your own body. And then you realize you have to do something about it, and you certainly do not want to quit drinking. So you make a compromise, and you decide that you're going to go to the gym. Or maybe your doctor tells you need to go because you show up for one of those physicals, and they do the blood work. And that's always embarrassing when they break the bad news to you after the blood work because it's not their speculation. They have an entire chart on a computer screen. And they look through it and they start going over the results. Okay, we got your blood pressure here. Or is this the national debt? That's not good. How about your blood? Yeah, your blood type is ragu. You're one Big Mac away from stroking out and spending the rest of your life sounding like the Dick Clark New Year's countdown in the final years. Is that something you want? Well, then you have to get in the gym. And you got to get on that exercise bike, and you got to sweat to the oldies, and you have to do everything that they do at the gym. So your doctor essentially threatens you with death if you don't go to that building. So you go to that building under protest because you don't want to stroke out and die. And you go through the whole sales pitch as to which plan to buy, and you have to buy all new equipment to use at this gym. And in this particular case, on La Cienega Boulevard, it's right near all of the office buildings in Beverly Hills and Century City. So I would imagine that a lot of people who go there are going either before or after work. So you have to be presentable. You just can't leave the gym after you spent an hour on the exercise bike and you sweat up a storm and then show up and present yourself in a professional context. You can't do that. People will think you're a pig. You'll stink. You'll have pit stains. You'll have sweat coming off of your brow. You're going to look like you just did a bump of cocaine with Hunter Biden. So you have to make yourself presentable. So people at this gym have to clean themselves up, get dressed, and move on to their office. And for a lot of these women who were in the female locker room, I would imagine they're trying to do it, and they're trying to do it quickly because they don't want to be late for work. So they're in there in the locker room area, showering, getting dressed, putting their makeup on, getting their hair right, those sorts of things. And a transgendered woman is just hanging out in the locker room with what was described by one of the women who was in there with their fruit outside the loam. And they weren't being discreet. They weren't being quick. They were just kind of lingering. And it got awkward, as you would imagine it would. The women don't want to see that. They don't want to see Franks and beans when they're trying to get to their office. That's not something they'd signed up for. I would imagine that many of them were disgusted and maybe didn't even feel physically safe. And then I looked up the picture of this woman, transgendered woman who was in there, and I don't know if she's even trying to pass as a woman, but no one is fooled. If Stevie Wonder were to pass by this transgendered woman, he'd say, "Hey, dude, what's up?" That's what the greeting would be. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is falling for the idea that this is a biological woman. It's just not happening. And sometimes with the transgendered women, they're passable. Sometimes you have to take a second look. Sometimes you have to look 2, 3, 4 times and you don't even know. Sometimes it's just a tall woman and you mistake them for one, and that can be embarrassing. But this one was fooling exactly 0 people. Nobody. And then I find out that this person also has a history. Apparently, when this person identified as a male, they were married to a woman. And after they were married to a woman, I guess the relationship didn't go well. And this now transgendered woman, when they were a man, got in trouble with the law for assaulting the ex-wife. I don't know what happened, but they were married and they lived together as a couple in Ohio. And Alexis Black, which is the name, beat up the wife. And the wife called the cops, and it became a whole thing. So the wife eventually leaves this person, and this person then decides that they're going to become a woman and identify as such, and they assume the identity of the ex-wife. Alexis Black is the name of the wife that this person beat up and is no longer with. So he moves to a new state, becomes a woman and assumes the identity of the ex that he left behind. And then apparently spends his time hanging out in women's locker rooms at the gym with zero discretion. So one of the women, who is a lesbian, got very upset at having to look at male genitalia. And so she caused a scene in the locker room and then went down and talked to management about it. And management told her that she was the problem. And I guess they revoked her membership because they thought she was being transphobic. So then she starts putting out videos all over social media because she's madder than a wet hen. And she starts showing up to these various events that politicians running for office are hosting. And she asked them about this specific incident and what they're going to do to protect women in safe spaces like locker rooms. And one of the first ones that she confronted with this question was Scott Wiener, who told her that trans women are women and there's no issue here. And then the second one was Eric Swalwell, and he came up with some variation of the same answer. So she's not getting any answers that she wants to hear. Everyone is siding with this spousal abuser over a woman who just wanted to be able to get ready for work without having to look at the opposite sex private parts. And so that led me to the question, how would the average woman respond to this? This woman, I've got to tell you, was brave to my eye with how she responded to this, because it's real easy to just pretend like you don't see it, stay quiet, and just try to avoid this person. And that's not what she did. She asserted herself and found her voice and said, this isn't right. And she probably knew, living here, that there would be blowback if she did that, which there was. And she was willing to accept that to make sure that her voice was heard. So ladies in the audience, it's ladies' night on the John Phillips Show. I only want to hear from you. If you're a dude, I don't want to hear from you this hour. Only the ladies. If you were in this woman's shoes, how would you have responded? You're in a woman's locker room at a gym, and there is a transgendered woman with their genitals hanging out right in front of your face. How would you handle it? 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. Your calls coming up right here on The John Phillips Show. It's The John Phillips Show. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Ladies, if there was a transgendered woman in the locker room exposing themselves in front of you, how would you handle it? 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. Your call's up next. It's the John Phillips Show. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And if you would like to listen to the show all through the holidays, even on the days where we aren't making live shows, that's easy. All you have to do is subscribe to the podcast edition of the program on your smartphone. All of the episodes will be downloaded automatically, and you can enjoy it whenever and wherever you'd like. All right, we're taking your calls now at 800-222-5222. A transgendered woman was parading around the locker room at the Gold's Gym on La Cienega Boulevard in Los Angeles, reportedly with their genitals exposed. The women in the locker room didn't like it. One of them complained about it, and as a result, got their membership revoked because they were allegedly transphobic. How would you handle it if that was you? If you were inside that locker room and forced to look at that, only in the presence of other women, and then someone with male genitalia, how would you respond? 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Elaine in Los Angeles. Elaine, hello.
Hi, thank you for considering my call. Kudos to the woman who stood up for, I think, for what is correct. Women want to change in the gym, at the gym in a place that's safe. If it were me, I wouldn't want to see a men's genitalia when I'm changing, and I would have said something as well. Boo on the gym that revoked her membership. I think the problem is so many people are afraid to say something that we're going to be considered phobic of any kind, transphobic, all of the phobias. And we're not looking at the fact that, you know what, let's call it what it is.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me how society becomes hypersensitive in certain areas, and yet you're expected to put up with all kinds of craziness in other areas. Do you remember when you would fly on an airplane? It was just a given that they would have peanuts. This is before all the budget cuts. But there would be a drink and there would be peanuts. It was a staple of flying on a commercial airplane.
Yes.
And then everyone decided they had a peanut allergy. And now they not only don't serve peanuts, but they make announcements on the plane. You're not allowed to even consume peanuts if you brought them with you because the peanut dust can make the allergies for the person with the peanut allergies go wild. So we can't enjoy peanuts on airplanes anymore, yet they're expecting women to look at male junk in the locker room on a daily basis.
Agreed with you. Because of one or two people, then everybody has to make accommodations. And kudos to the gal who stood up for that fact. I think more people need to, like I said, I wouldn't want to be in the locker room with a person with guy parts. I mean, it's got to be a safe place. I don't know.
So it's a security issue for you.
Oh.
You would not feel safe with the man exposing himself to you when you're trying to get dressed.
It's more of a principle thing. It's a ladies' locker room. You're not a lady. You're a dude. I'm sorry. You know what? People are going to call me whatever, but that's the way I feel about it.
All right. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Let's go to Kathleen in San Francisco. Kathleen, hello.
Hey, thanks, John. Terrific topic. First of all, I would be outraged. I would be upset. And I told the screener that I think that this woman has a lot of courage. I appreciate the fact that she confronted Scott Weiner about this. I am from San Francisco. I'm very familiar with Scott Weiner. I think I would try to enlist peer pressure with the women who are in the room, who probably have strong feelings about what they're witnessing, and try to shame this guy out of the locker room en masse. That's what I would.
Particularly when you look at the guy's history. The guy has been violent with women in the past, and then he moved to a different city and assumed the identity of his ex, who he allegedly beat up. That's creepy.
Extremely creepy. And of course, at that moment in the locker room, we wouldn't have known that. We would have just known that this is an outrage. And how dare you? How dare you?
Here's the other thing, too. Let's just say that you're transitioning and you take it really seriously and you believe that you were born in the wrong body, that you were born with the wrong gender. Wouldn't you be discreet about that? Because by flaunting your genitals in front of a room full of biological women, what you're doing is you're showing them that you're different from them. And that would make you, I guess, feel less than if that fact was apparent to everyone in the room. If you're just out there flaunting it and letting everything hang out and making sure that everyone in the room sees it, you're an exhibitionist.
Yeah. That's a really good point. That's a very good insight, actually. Yeah. I would think that if you were in the middle of this transition, you would be very discreet and you'd be careful. And it's a sensitive, touchy situation for you personally. Why would you go into exhibitionistic mode? doesn't make sense.
I would say that most people in locker rooms, bathrooms, whatever, any place where there's potential nudity, most people are discreet about it even when it's single sex. No one just lingers
Correct.
there and hangs out and treats it like it's a nightclub. People get in there, they do what they need to do, they grab their bag, they clean themselves up, and they move on with their day. It's not a place where you spend a lot of time.
No, contrary to popular belief, there aren't any stripping poles in women's lockers.
Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. As we sit here talking about this, I want you to do something for a second, because we see this on the news on a regular basis. So even though most of us recognize how absurd this is, you become desensitized to it to a certain degree over time just due to the repetition. Imagine for 1 second, and I'm not even going to take George Washington or Abraham Lincoln or Jesus Christ or anyone like that. Think about a relative in your own personal life, a parent, a grandparent, someone that you look up to, someone that you respect, someone that you had a lot of conversations about life with, but they've been gone for a minute. Imagine if you are having a conversation with them today. You go to one of these people who talks to the dead, and you're having a conversation with your dead grandma. And your dead grandma says, "Oh my God, I'm so happy to be able to reconnect with you. Tell me how the world has changed since I have departed." Now, imagine having to explain to your dead grandmother that in today's world, we have to teach everyone that men can get pregnant. And then think about how they'd respond when you get into the whole thing about the furries. So, Grandma, it's interesting you should ask me that question. Well, as it so happens, now there's an entire subset of our population who gets turned on by stuffed animals. So what they do is they dress up like stuffed animals, and they hang out with other people who dressed up like stuffed animals, and they have sex. And then sometimes they even all get together at the DoubleTree by the airport, and they have a convention. What do you think about that, Grandma? Can you imagine the reaction that you would get trying to explain that to someone? You couldn't do it with a straight face. There's no way. I couldn't do it with a straight face. And you know what their reaction would be. You know, these people fought during World War II. These people dealt with the Nazis. They dealt with Hirohito. They dealt with Mussolini. They've seen it all. Furries, that's one bridge too far. They would look at you like you were on drugs, and they would do a swan dive back in the casket. They'd say, "Okay, it sounds like I checked out at the right time. You have fun with that." And you know what? That's probably the normal response. Let's go to Freddie in Los Angeles. Freddie, hello.
Hi, John. About 4 years ago, I would say, right after they opened up California from the pandemic, at the Wii Spa in Koreatown near MacArthur Park, I don't know if you're familiar with that, there was a woman there with her 3 children in the women's section. And there was a guy naked, completely naked in the women's section. And when this woman went to complain, the Wii Spa stayed completely silent. After that, every Saturday there was LGBTQ rights people out there, Black Lives Matter, a couple other groups. There was fighting on the street, violence on the street. And LAPD did an investigation into this gentleman, who he was, and he was a sex offender. And everybody defended him to the hilt.
I don't get it. First of all, anyone behaving like that, lingering in a place where you're not supposed to linger, that's a red flag. But you do it when you have the opposite genitalia of everyone else in that room, you're up to no good. You just are.
You know what's incredible about the left is that if they want me to believe that a man is a woman, I have to believe that in their minds. It's just unbelievable. But of course, they're very hypocritical because if it happens to them, then it's a different story. You know, it's just amazing. But where are the rights of children and young girls in this situation? Because I always tell my friends, that are okay with transgender going into a female bathroom. I go, well, if you had a granddaughter, are you okay with them looking at that transgender person's private parts? What's wrong with you?
Thank you for the call, sir. Let's go to Linda in the East Bay. Linda, hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
I've been trying to call your show for a while. Thank you for putting me on. I have a big issue with this because I used to go to a gym, and I stopped going to the gym for this reason. As far as the lady, I thought the lady was in the Bay Area, but she's from L.A. I saw the news clip a while ago. I think it happened a couple weeks ago. And, yeah, she's perfectly right. Let's go back to Leah Thompson when she was doing the swimming. She said that she can be in the women's locker room because she identifies herself as a woman, which is fine. But you don't belong in the women's locker room. And what does he end up marrying? A woman. This is all a farce to get them into the women's locker room. And the left doesn't care about it because they can afford private clubs for their kids and private schools for their kids to make sure that they don't have to deal with this. But the rest of the people do. And that's wrong. It has to be put to a stop. We need to be protected. And I don't care how you identify, you need to stay in your place.
Thank you for the call. Let's go to Kathy in Anaheim Hills. Kathy, hello.
Okay. First of all, as women who go to self-defense classes, one of the things that is supposed to trigger you to defend yourself is when some guy drops his drawers in front of you. That's when you go for the crotch and you go for the eyes. Just because this person is in the middle of transgendering, what do you so if a guy is about to attack you and rape you, and the first thing he does is drop his drawers, you go, hold on, are you just showing me your junk because you're transgendering, or are you about to assault me? I mean, there's kind of no pause. I mean, this is where it's game on. If that guy dropped his drawers in the girls' locker room, not only would I defend myself, but I'd defend the ladies around me. And the first thing I'd go for is the stuff dangling. So, what are you supposed to do? I mean, literally, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you weren't about to assault somebody. I mean, this is how many self-defense courses tell you before you attack some guy for showing you his stuff, ask him if he's transgendering. So
that's the whole thing, though, with wokeism and political correctness. They want to take every normal thought that you have and teach you that it's wrong, and they want you to do the opposite.
Well, I think every self-defense course for young women, and particularly, can you imagine if anybody has ever been assaulted, anybody has ever been raped, and that guy shows up in a locker room, in a women's locker room? We're talking emotional abuse, and I don't care where he is in his thinking. That is abusive. Just because you have something on your mind doesn't mean that you get to hurt somebody else. It just doesn't. Yeah.
Thank you for the call. Let's go to Anna in Santa Monica. Anna, hello.
Hey, yeah, I went through this with my daughter 2 years ago at a McDonald's bathroom. She was a teenager, about 15 at the time, and this guy, somebody was in the stall, came out, and they're washing their hands, and my daughter's too busy on her phone, and I'm like, I had to do a double take because it was a guy wearing a mask in his 50s, dressed all in black with pants, and I was like, wait a minute, excuse me, what are you doing in here? He goes, I'm a woman, and he held up an always pad. And I was like, are you kidding me? I'm getting so upset just thinking about it again. And I said, get the F out. He went running out of the McDonald's restaurant. But what killed me was my daughter thought it was normal. I went to the manager, who's this young girl in this McDonald's, and I said that there was a guy in the women's restroom, and he goes, well, we can't discriminate. And I was like, are you kidding me? I said, do you have kids? And she goes, no, I don't. I said, well, when you have kids, when you have a daughter, you would understand. And I filed a complaint with McDonald's corporate. They sounded like they were concerned, but I don't know if they did anything. But until you experience that, people have no idea what you go through and how violating it is. I was like, what if there was a little girl in there by herself?
Did you have a conversation with your daughter about it afterwards?
Oh, yeah. She had to hear it in the car because we were out of town. She had to hear it the whole way home about how that was absolutely insane, that they shouldn't have been in there. And she's not one to say a lot of words, but she got the message from me because I was extremely upset about the whole thing. I just should have probably posted about it in my social media about my experience or something so people were aware. But, of course, at that time 2 years ago, you're basically supposed to suck it up. And
you'd be canceled. They would come after you at your place of work. They would come after you in your social clubs. They would try to cancel you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I actually went to that woman's page of that woman that was at the gym, and I went on her Instagram page and I commented that what I went through, and I said, until you experience it, you have no idea. So all these other women that are supporting this, they don't have a clue. So,
all right. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. And thank you for setting a good example for your daughter. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. It's the John Phillips Show. It's the John Phillips Show. 800-222-5222. Let's go to Kenny in Walnut Creek. Kenny, hello.
Hi, John. Got a similar gym story. I'll be quick. A friend of mine about 10 years ago was in a gym in San Francisco, Japantown. They had two Hispanic workers in a women's gym, supposedly changing a light bulb while women were undressing. And my friend saw that and turned around and told them to leave, and they wouldn't leave. And she had the phone turn on them. They swat the phone out of her hand. And so I ended up calling SFPD, which was useless because they came as, they can't find the employees that were in there. They don't know who they were. And so long story short, got an attorney to file a lawsuit because the gym didn't care. And supposedly the insurance company said, they cannot locate the employees that were in there for some reason. They can't locate them to talk to them. And they didn't want it in court. They ended up just offering a settlement out of court. And I implored anybody in positions like that, file some legal action, get their attention, because gyms don't really care about members. They really don't, especially when they have issues like this.
Sir, I got to run. Thank you for the call. If you're on hold, stay there. We'll get to more calls next hour. Barbara Stone joins us as well. It's the John Phillips Show.